Alright, so in this one, guys, we're going to be talking about maps that you should be blocking or restricting. I think most people just use the term block, but we're going to start with Abby. We're just going to go from the top and go all the way down on all the maps. And by the way, this is on Wargaming's site itself. These are all the maps, and if you click on the maps here, it gives you a strategy overview of the map. Now, keep in mind, this is Wargaming's strategy. It's very standard, right? You're not going to get a whole lot of how-to reading this, but if you guys are brand new to the game, or maybe you haven't played on a map that much, just come here and you can get a lot of information about the that particular map. So starting with Abbey, Abbey is kind of garbage for light tanks, but I don't recommend blocking it because realistically, guys, you want to be blocking Ensk and Himmelsdorf. I would say block Ensk first and then Himmelsdorf, but anyway, regardless of which ones I suggest you block, we're just going to go down and talk about all the maps, and I'm going to tell you what I think about them, right? So, Abbey is kind of garbage for light tanks. If you want, you can block this one. And swap it out for maybe Ensk. However, with Abbey, you have a lot of options for crossfire, and there's also, like, you could take the hill, right? It's similar to mines. You can go into the middle of the map. You have a lot of options for shooting and all that stuff. Whereas with Ensk, Ensk is strictly like just a brawling map, so that's why I always recommend blocking Ensk. Berlin is also kind of garbage for light tanks. Berlin, let me double check and make sure that this, because the way this is drawing out the map is kind of weird here. I don't know if this is the right image. I think that this yeah, so this one is correct. This is drawing out that map that got banned after the Russia-Ukraine war started. So I don't know why, but that's wrong. But Berlin, this map, man, also kind of trash for light tanks, but there's some options that you have in the southern portion of the map. Cliff is fine. You know, it's not great, but you do have that giant hill on Cliff, and also, you know, you have that donut that you can kind of experiment with and stuff like that. Empire's Border, another average map. I would suggest just using the north of this map. It's fine. It's not that bad. This is the map you want to be blocking. Ensk is really bad for light tanks because you can go to the forest here and people claim like, oh yeah, you can spot up here, but look at the size of the map, man. Like, I'm telling you, you're not going to get that much use here unless you're in a really passive scouting vehicle that can make these quick runs, or you're able to get into a bush somehow and not get lit. And then the whole other side of the map is just a brawling zone. And if you have a tank that can kind of brawl, like, you might be okay. But the thing is, even if you're in a tank such as the LT-432 is always the big example I use, or the T-54 lightweight, these are vehicles that I play a lot. They have some turret armor, but you can't even really go hold down in many places on this map. So you end up just doing this whole, like, you know, peek-a-boom is what a lot of people call it, and that's all you can do in a light tank on Ensk, really. There are some games that I've played on Ensk that I actually did really, really well, right? I've performed very well on Ensk, but it's just the map that, the only map that I get where I literally almost want to AFK as soon as I get, like, if I get the map and I'm in a light tank, like, I just don't even care to play it, you know? That's how bad Ensk is, and I'd highly recommend that you block Ensk. Now, Ensk is fine for heavies that can side scrape. That's really what this map is about, you know, trying to side scrape. Like, side scraping is huge on Ensk, but block it as a light tank. Trust me, you're going to be better off. Fisherman's Bay, I have mixed feelings about Fisherman's Bay. It's pretty good, but I find it to be, like, yeah, you only have a couple options to go to as a light tank, or you can experiment in the mid, but I feel like Fisherman's Bay is one of those maps where, you know, you could have a good game in any type of light tank. So I think Fisherman's Bay is fine. Fjords is like, you know, Fjords is another one of those, but also a decent map for lights. Like, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I would experiment on Fjords. I would experiment with this area of the map. That middle area, that's where you're going to get a lot of your spotting. And moving on, Highway. So Highway is kind of unbalanced. Highway is one of those maps where I feel like the northeast spawn has a huge disadvantage and the southeast spawn is usually going to win this top left corner. But if I were you, I would experiment with the top left corner. That's where you're going to get most of your spawning from. Himmelsdorf, this is the second map that I would recommend that you block. And the reason why is that Himmelsdorf, again, is a really small map, and it's made for, corridor fighting and hold down brawling in this sector. However, Himmelsdorf, in my eyes, is not as bad as Ensk. And when I'm running standard account, I have Ensk blocked first. And I say this because on Himmelsdorf, you can actually fight hold down on the hill. So if you have a light tank that can go hold down, that's great. You can also experiment with going to like this 3 line or whatever this is over here and getting shots at the hill, or you can just stay on the hill and get shots down. Because recently they edited the wall on this map, and you can now get shots going down a lot easier. And you can hit people all the way across the map on the railroad tracks. So I don't mind Himmelsdorf as much, but I still have garbage games on this map because when you're in a light tank, you're outplayed by anyone who has armor, right? Like pretty much anywhere on the map. And the same goes for Ensk, and that's why I recommend that you guys just don't even bother playing these maps, block them, and don't bother with these maps. Karelia is pretty good because Karelia, you have the hill, you have the other north side of the map, and then you have the whole middle zone where you can really, like a light tank can almost go anywhere on Karelia, but I would recommend playing the north or the mid, and you can get pretty good spotting numbers on this map. Lakeville is okay. On Lakeville, you have a couple areas over here for a light tank, and then you have a couple areas here, and then you have those rocks in the middle, and you can even play the middle line, so you have a lot of options on Lakeville. Lakeville is completely fine, and I'd recommend it. Recommend that you don't block this one. Live Oaks, okay. Live Oaks, I would say the east portion of this map is really important, but there are a lot of places for light tanks. You can mess around with them in the middle here. There's a couple bushes over here. I would say a good amount of better maps, but Live Oaks is not bad. Malinovka is going to be one of the best, right? Like everyone knows Malinovka is great. There's so many options. You have standard bush option here, then you can come up this hill. There's a bush here, there's a bush on this side over here. There's bushes along the hill, and then active scouting is also not that challenging on this map. I would say on Prokhorovka, it's the easiest, obviously, because you have a big ridge line, but you can get away with some active scouting, and then you can also mess around with these little like ditches over here in this corner. So yeah, Malinovka is a really good map. Mines just has the hill. It's like whatever, everyone knows Mines. It'd probably be like maybe the third one I would block if you had an option, or the fourth or whatever. If you had options to block more maps, you can mess around with blocking Mines, guys, but I think you can get by in a light tank. Like you'd be okay. Mountain Pass is not that great. You have that starting spot where you can spot the crossings, but spotting the crossing from the south side is tricky, and it's hard to like Wargaming has always had this imbalance, and it's not good for light tanks ultimately because Mountain Pass is really a corridor map. So keep this in mind. However, there are worse maps. Muravanka is a very good map for light tanks in my opinion. You have that whole forest area and you can get creative. Overlord's kind of garbage because Overlord is this whole peekaboom, 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 peekaboom crap, and I don't like it, but I would play the east on Overlord. Paris is probably, like, if I had to give you guys a third map to block, it would probably be Paris, because Paris, like, you have only really two options. You can mess around with this like little middle city area, or you just come out here, sit in a bush, and stay there the entire game. I recently had a really good game in the LHM TV where I played the north, this rock in the north on this map, waited for my team to push, and I ended up getting like 2,000, no, I think it was like almost 3,000 damage. I'm going to show you guys the replay soon, because I'm going to post this video up like maybe today or tomorrow. There are videos that I have for you guys up until like almost the end of July that I already have scheduled to post. So just keep that in mind. Like there are some videos that I put up that I had recorded 3 weeks, maybe even if I'm playing that much, like a month ahead of time. So, but anyway, yeah, I had a really good game on this map, guys, but it's rare. Like Paris is just kind of a garbage map. It's a garbage map for light tanks. It really is. Pearl River is pretty good. I don't mind Pearl River. There's a lot of people that hate Pearl River. I find it to be fine. I usually just play the west, and you can play the city as well. It's fine. Pilsen is garbage, man. This would be like the fourth map that I would recommend that you block because you have all brawling zones over here and in the middle. And then on the east portion of this map, you have that one little bush line, and it's mostly just like tank destroyer battle and stuff like that. Like it's kind of a garbage map. This map almost looks wrong. It's this one. Yeah, like I guess maybe because Wargaming has like a console version or whatever, maybe that's why there's like two different, these are just old pictures perhaps. But yeah, this is kind of what we want to be looking at right here. But yeah, you have this little bush line and stuff, but it's like so tricky, man. And you guys have seen games that I played on Pilsen. Pilsen is just trash. Prokhorovka, this is your king of light tank maps. You know, you have that whole western portion of the map. You can even get creative with the east of this map, and you have the ridgeline to do all your active scouting. Like everyone loves Proc, man. Proc is the king, and I love Prokhorovka. There are times where I make a lot of mistakes on Prokhorovka, but Province, Province is, well, you're only going to get it up to tier 6, I believe. This is a map where you can actually get decent use in the mid here if you do try it, like on these corners. But Province is just a crossfire map. Like that's all it is. You know, it's not great, but there are, you know, worse maps. Redshire is actually pretty decent. I don't mind Redshire at all. You just have to know how the middle of the map works. There's a lot of ridge lines and stuff. And then you have, like, obviously, you can get a good amount of crossfire on Redshire as well. Like, Redshire is really all about crossfire and understanding ridge lines. That's my opinion, but you have decent options as a light tank. Runeberg is maybe the fourth map or the fifth map or whatever we're at now that I would recommend you guys block. Runeberg is basically, in my eyes, it's like Himmelsdorf. However, you do have this eastern portion of the map that is not as bad, and you can get creative with it, but it's almost like, actually, I would change my answer. I would say Runeberg is more similar to Ensk, except that you have a bush line in this one. You know, like it's not as bad, but Runeberg is also trash. So that's another map that I would recommend you block. Again, I always block Ensk and Himmelsdorf, but Runeberg is going to be up there and Paris is going to be up there. Serene Coast is decent. There's not any issues with Serene Coast. You can get creative in spotting really either side of the map or going to the mid. There's bushes in this area and this area to spot the east, and you can also make like active scouts in the west, active passes in the west, so I don't mind it. Siegfried Line, this map is kind of garbage for light tanks, to be honest with you. There are worse maps, but this one is definitely going to be up there close to like Paris and crap, because there's just not much to do until the game really gets going. But you can make these flanking maneuvers to get over, especially going south to north. I feel like if you get up into this pocket in the north, it's so easy to smack side shots into people like endlessly. So you have that option where your mobility is actually going to pay off. Steps, a lot of people like steps. I actually don't like steps at all. I find it to be way too open, but you do have bush options in the middle, and once your team advances, you can get creative in kind of scouting. I would say the east. The west is a little more tricky, but yeah, there are options in the middle of this map, so I can't really call it a bad map for lights. Studs is really good in my opinion. I love studs, but I don't think it's necessarily that I love it as a light tank player. I just really understand the map, and I understand how important the middle ridgeline is and how important it is to win south and stuff like that. So I actually enjoy this map. I almost never go north, but you can also make the plays to go north. You have a couple bush options here on this side. You can try to be really passive here, and then you have the options in the south, right? And once you get to the ridge line, you have those bushes in the middle. So I would highly recommend that you keep studs, you know, unblocked. Tundra, this map is also kind of garbage, but the thing with Tundra is that you have the hill, and there are a couple options. Like there's ridge lines where you can kind of poke and get creative, like in the right at the baseline, or I should say in this middle of the map, but also close to like the base area. But again, the hill is also pretty important, and you can kind of play the hill. So you have like a couple options on Tundra, but this is also up there. This is up there with like Paris. Like it's going to be close because it's a lot of it is brawling, right? But at least you can go hold down as well. Westfield, I love Westfield. Westfield is a beautiful map. I have argued before, even on my stream, that I almost like Westfield more now than like Prokhorovka, because I understand this map very well. The east going to this, like, so the south portion going to the east portion of this map, this whole area of the map is really, really important to understand. The bottom and the right side of the map, I should say. And if you understand it, you're going to have a good time in a light tank, I promise. Wide Park, you only see up to tier 6, I believe. I had an insane game in the Covenanter and on this map. I will bring that to you guys like maybe the next week or so. It was an insane game. Just leave this map unblocked, guys. You're fine because it's only low tier and you can spot so many people when you run this ridgeline initially. It's kind of fun. Like, I don't know. I would recommend just leaving this one open, but it is kind of a brawling map, to be honest with you. Erlenberg, there are better maps. I don't mind Erlenberg, but I feel like it's very challenging to spot either side of this map because it's a long map and there's no bush options really. Like, you can experiment with the east. You have like 2 bushes that you can kind of sit in this area. And then in the west, if you wanted to, you can kind of like poke maybe these corners or whatever, or this ridge line. Like, you can get kind of creative, but Erlenberg's just kind of trash. But there's you want to be blocking other maps, right? Mannerheim line is okay. There's a couple of bush options on Mannerheim line. Error 404, fantastic. Thanks a lot, Wargaming. But not much more to talk about on Mannerheim line. You can try and play the north. The south is where the heavies are going to go. Just ignore the south. Glacier. So Glacier, I'm not a big fan of Glacier, but you can make it work, especially the southeastern portion of the map. You can make it work, and there's chances for crossfire and stuff like that, and then you can even get aggressive and try and go to the aircraft carrier. That's up to you. Airfield is trash, man. I think at one point Airfield was my 3rd blocked map because Airfield is all about brawling, and I would definitely put Airfield up there with, again, Paris. It's not as bad as Ensk, but it's right up there with like Paris and stuff, man. Like, this map is just kind of trash. You really can't do anything until the game progresses significantly. So, El Halaf, another trash map. I freaking hate El Halaf, dude. Like, this one again is one of those ones that's way up there with those top few. But again, I'm always going to block Ensk first, and usually Himmelsdorf. You can kind of manage on El Halaf with this middle area right here, but it's just so challenging to play this middle area because you're exposed from everywhere, man. Like, your safest bet is just to go to this hill. I've died many times, like too early on El Halaf, and I'm not a fan of El Halaf, guys. Like, I'm just gonna be honest. Like, El Halaf is just some trash. Ghost Town. So Ghost Town is actually not that bad because you have this entire bush line in the east. You also have 2 bushes on the west, and I feel like you can definitely make this map work, especially with a passive scouting light. No problems with Ghost Town. And then we have Sand River, guys. Sand River, I actually love this map because I always play the south now. And from the south, I understand how the ridge lines work from both spawns. And if we lose the south, then I'll just come back and try and defend it as good as I can. If we win the south, it's a GG for me, man. I know how to run these ridge lines, especially from the east spawn. Like, I'm telling you, man, if you have a decent tank with decent view range, you're going to absolutely annihilate people on this map once you win this area because you can just push right in using the ridge lines and you'll spot everyone. But you can do the same from the west spawn as well going east. You just run this ridge line here at the bottom and you're home free to basically spot their entire base as well. So that's why I always play south in Sand River. I don't mind Sand River at all. Some people hate it. I'm the weird one. I actually love Sand River. And that's it, guys. I hope that kind of helps you out with all of the maps. Again, I'm going to leave this link in the description for this video. It's wiki.wargaming.net/en/maps, and there is a lot of information. And again, we only discussed the standard maps. I didn't go into the grand battle maps, the frontline maps, the special maps, and all that. And we didn't talk about the removed maps either. But they did. You can actually see all the maps that they removed here, and a couple of them I know because of Kharkov was one of them, I believe, and maybe like Winterberg or something. I know Kharkov was one that they removed because of that war with the war that's obviously going on with Ukraine and Russia. They removed this map. Kharkov wasn't that great anyway, but yeah, but you can see all this information here, guys. I'm not gonna. This video is plenty long already. I'm not gonna go into all this, but you know, they even have like the Himmelsdorf Championship for the football that they did. That was really fun, dude. My dad and I loved this. But that's all, guys. If you have any questions, leave them down below. And hope it's informative, guys. I'll see you for the next one. Take care now. Bye-bye.